First off, police officers are not trained very well on this stuff at all, and they usually have no idea what they're dealing with. There's this old myth that goes around between first responders like police about how a tiny speck of fentanyl that is the size of a grain of sand could be absorbed through your skin and kill a 250-pound man. This is not true at all. That is a total myth. It would actually take massive amounts of this stuff and a very long exposure time. And when this was tested by toxicology experts, they concluded that these claims have been repeatedly refuted. But even though the evidence shows otherwise, a study from 2019 showed that 80% of first responders in New York believed that briefly touching fentanyl could be deadly. So cops are still out here in 1080p body cam footage acting like they're dying just from getting near this stuff. Like in this video where a stupid ass police officer fakes having convulsions after thinking she touched the drug.
47.
Look at her shaking while I give her the Narcan. This isn't real.
47.
Or this video where another stupid ass police officer touches a baggie and pretends to OD so hard that he just falls over.
Breathe. It's okay.
This is fake as and these cops are full of shit. And toxicology experts are always calling out these kinds of videos for being misleading and untrue. And according to the experts, any first responders who actually do feel like they are dying or their body is shutting down from being near this stuff are probably just experiencing the nocebo effect. So just because they mentally expect to have a horrible reaction, they will feel like they really are, even when they have absolutely no drugs in their system at all. Or maybe they're just faking it, just completely faking. I sort of think they're faking. But police are very scared of everything. Why are the police so damn scared? Calm down. Plus, police departments are well known to be widely corrupt. And police officers and police officials have a great reason to just lie about this kind of stuff. And they love to hype up local fear in their city. If we think the police are doing something really dangerous by getting this super deadly cannabis off the street and they're risking their life to do it, then the police might get a bigger budget for their department next year. So they can buy more tanks and grenade launchers or whatever it is they waste their money on. Plus, it just makes them look good and feel heroic. But besides all the lying that comes from the police and the huge lack of training that they receive, there is also a big problem with the testing. These police are basing all of these claims about fentanyl-laced weed on these really cheap, unreliable roadside drug test kits. These things are very cheap and often give false positives, and that is exactly why these roadside tests have to be confirmed later in a real lab by a trained professional, and not in a parking lot somewhere by this guy. And when these samples get sent to the lab and then they come back with results that show there was actually never any fentanyl in there at all, those stories never get reported. The police aren't out here making tweets saying, oh my bad, we were actually wrong. And even if they did, no one would report that because that isn't exciting news. The rise of fentanyl is definitely a big problem, and just like any new drug epidemic, news channels like to cover this stuff in the most extreme and scary way possible, just like they did back in the 80s with crack babies. News outlets get all of their money from crazy looking headlines that get people to click on an article. And that money is all they are thinking about when they write these wild ass stories. If they can find a police chief or a doctor that will say on camera that cannabis has fentanyl in it, of course they're gonna report that. They'll cover it 3 times in the same day because it's shocking and it makes them money. But they don't ever follow up on these stories because a news segment about how that thing we covered last week was actually incorrect isn't exciting, and that doesn't make any money. And it's easy to find people like doctors who want to be interviewed and will say whatever you want even if it doesn't make any sense, like when homie said this.
We're seeing more kids reporting they thought they were just smoking marijuana when drug screens showed fentanyl, and they would have toxicological or medical side effects consistent with that.
Like, doesn't he understand that these kids have a really good incentive to just lie about what they were actually taking? They're not going to admit to using hard stuff or using pills that could be contaminated, but they'll admit to smoking a little weed, sure. In the black market, there could always be a tiny chance that something gets cross-contaminated. Like if you had some dust on the table and then you broke up some weed on that table later and it got a little bit of residue, a little cross-contamination. But the stories about people doing this on purpose just to make more money or to make more potent weed are just completely lies. The Journal of Emergency Medical Services had a conference in 2022 where they said that fentanyl-laced cannabis is a myth promoted by the media and the law. But that doesn't mean that all cannabis is safe, because there are some things